Alright everyone, we start off today with a big mimetic win. We've gotten Elon Musk to use the term Legacymedia, a link in the description, archived of course, yet we're taking a little bit of a win right now. This is part of a multi-year propaganda effort by yours truly, to be clear. I will get into the origins of the term and the origins of my fiddling with linguistics as well. I have to qualify this first because of course shit posters on the internet will immediately say Styx is trying to take credit for inventing a term that he didn't invent. I have never claimed to have invented the term Legacymedia. Some clankers apparently think that I did. My first exposure to it was several years before I began using the term in vogue, and it was by Greg Hunter, actually, of USA Watchdog. And I looked up the term because I got involved with memetics. I've been involved with linguistics and psyops for a long time anyway. I got into studying that at the end of the 2000s. Took a course in linguistic anthropology actually when I was in college at UVM. Great course, by the way. I wonder if that professor's still there. He was roughly my age, I think. He was just an associate professor at the time. You should probably give him a pay raise. Good professor. Good dude. Explained things very well. Much better than a lot of the professors at UVM. None of the wokeness either. I got interested in psyops and linguistics at the time, but it wouldn't be for a number of years before I became familiarized with the term memetics. Wrote a book on it, Occult Memetics, by the way, available on Amazon. You should get a copy. Apparently my books, for some reason, the sales have doubled over the last few weeks. I don't know what I did right. I guess I pleased a demon somewhere. Couldn't be part of a larger effort in the occult either, by the way. Hint, hint, spooky woo. The term Legacymedia technically dates to 1998, so we're talking ancient history at this point. And the term really refers to media outlets, newsprint, television, radio, etc., who were reluctant to get into the .com situation. So by the end of the 90s, a lot of interesting shit was already on the internet. 1998, things are cooking up at the time. And you've got the .com bubble beginning to bubble up. And a lot of media groups, if they had a website at all, it was really spare. It was basically a placeholder. Hey, we exist, and that's it. Some of them took Paul Krugman's advice and said, well, the internet's going to be the next fax machine. It's too pricey, you know, nobody in the working class is going to get in on it, so half the population is precluded. It's just going to be a handful. It's going to be the upper middle class toy, basically. That's what they thought at the time, which was ludicrous. Any moron could have told you that that wasn't actually going to be the case. You know, innovation happens, but they thought so. I would say there's a second layer at this point to Legacymedia. And again, I did not invent the term, but you'll notice that it was only used sporadically until myself and a handful of other people began popularizing it. So I'm taking a win for it being injected into mainstream linguistic culture at this time. I do believe that I've used the term more than any other substantial content creator at this point, so I'm putting myself at the top of the goddamn pile. This is memetic too, by the way. Anything that sticks in your head is memetic. Just to be clear. Much like you should be the brown milk, and if you want to succeed, you have to make yourself unique. Do unique things. It's very, very intriguing how this works on people's minds. By the way, when I use the term propaganda or psyops, notably, they generally have a negative connotation. You can also use propaganda to promote liberty. You can use it to promote freedom. You can use it to promote people pulling themselves up by their bootstraps, vomiting up the black pill and improving their lives. I seek to do this on a daily basis. Just to be clear, here's the thing. Legacymedia is an important term, and I'll try to explain exactly the ramifications of it. If you converse with the average person and you ask them, what is the press? So what's protected under the First Amendment specifically with regards to the rights of the press? They identify typically the press as being corporate press, Legacymedia. They did the New York Times, CNN, Fox. It's ironic that this is a Fox News article because Fox News is Legacymedia. I would point out that of all of the .com era media groups, though, they did invest early and often on the internet. At the time, they were the new kids, so it made sense for them to do so. Less so in the social media era a few years later, when social media begins burgeoning, Fox falls behind a little bit, and then you get the rise of something else, which I've also coined, and it's been literally used in studies and data analytics, missing link media. I may have actually invented that one. I'm not 100% sure, so don't sue me if that's not the case. Term's literally been used in scientific write-ups analyzing the internet, so another win, I suppose, for Clankdom. Raise your spoons, caffeinate yourselves. I'm hyper-caffeinated at the moment, and I'll be more caffeinated in a little bit. The importance is this. It helps to break the old conditioning wherein people typically refer to the press as being the newspaper, the television broadcast, so a corporation. Well, that's not the press. In fact, it's explicitly only one tiny component. For example, let me try to explain further. What am I doing right now? Am I engaging in free speech or am I engaging in free press? Well, the press. I'm not talking to you, I'm talking to my computer and to the cat, the plants behind me. I'm not anywhere near you, probably. If you're part of the U.S. audience, you have to get on a plane in order to be even proximate to my location. I'm not even in the same continent as you. So it's not speech. I'm not speaking to you. I'm recording myself speaking to a computer, putting it on the internet, and then you're absorbing the material. It's much closer to me using a press. In the 1700s parlance, the press was quite literally the printing press. A wooden frame in which little characters made of metal, lead typically, were placed, and then you could use this press and ink, gall ink at the time mostly, or black walnut. You would press the actual papers out, and you could do multiple pages at once. You get a good pamphlet going, you could make 1,000 copies in a day. This was, by the way, a massive improvement over older press designs and over, of course, illuminated manuscripts and copying things by hand. Gutenberg was a good man, just saying. Gets far too little credit while being world-renowned at the same time. It's one of those like a Lindsey Buckingham story. Someone gets massively underrated despite the fact that they're applauded by millions of people. The legacy media is only one portion of the press. But a lot of people think of it as the press. They think that it's synonymous. They think that newsprint corporations are synonymous with the press. So you have to shift people's awareness using linguistics. You have to make up a new term that encapsulates a meaning that isn't generally prior understood. Legacy media represents the old guard media, so non-internet area, pre-internet media, typically corporate in structure, or invariably really when you think about it, which releases information. It's also got a negative connotation because the legacy media typically does not engage in actual journalism anymore. It engages in opinion making, politically salacious stories based on anonymous sources, which typically is them talking out of their ass. Missing link media are corporate groups that release material, and their internet era. So this begins with Drudge. Drudge is arguably the first missing link media site. They are not legacy media, to be clear. Same with Salon and Vox, Breitbart, The Blaze. And by the way, missing link media doesn't have a direct negative connotation. It simply means that it's a standard style of press group that does journalism, or journalism in name at least, that has a corporate structure, but also was from the internet era. So we're talking post-mid-90s, effectively, for these groups. A handful a little bit before that, again like Drudge, and that's basically it. So say it. Use the term legacy media. It's catching on for a reason. It's because it's mimetic. It's because it encapsulates a meaning that needs to be understood by people. It encapsulates that meaning, and it helps shift their awareness of the old regard for the press as being, well, the press is the New York Times, to the proper understanding, the original understanding, which is the activities of the press. It's more of a verb than to press material is a verb. It's not a noun. Just to be clear, the rights of the press are the rights of the actual usage of a printing press. Now, the founders didn't understand that eventually the printing press would evolve into what we're doing here with video and podcasts and people using PDFs and shit like that, but it's the same basic premise. It's based off the initial verbal usage. The same with like the Second Amendment. The founders never envisioned that there would be the Browning machine gun. They never envisioned that there would be mortars and shit like that, like the modern weaponry. but they're based on older weapons. They're topically similar effectively in their function. They're still covered under the second, because the concept of arms is an expansive one. And to arm, again, is a verb. Just to be clear, confusing verbs and nouns seems to be the biggest sticking point of the authoritarians with regards to the Constitution. It's very, very interesting when you think about it. I'm fascinated by the subject, by the way, in fact, arguably obsessed by it again, literally writing a booklet on the subject many years ago. That one had more to do with Keck and meme culture than anything else, but I do touch upon topics like the Legacymedia. I'm thinking I should probably write a pamphlet on this subject too. In fact, when I'm done with that Donald Trump liberal fantasy thing that I'm working on now, which is just for humor purposes, I think I just got an idea about what my next booklet will be. Huzzah! By the way, I am going to go back to editing one-offs. I'm just going to be more selective as far as the ones that I edit. Again, you can tell that I'm hyper-caffeinated today. My mind is a little bit scattered. Again, I didn't get hugely great sleep last night, although I tried. I managed to pass out for a few hours, but the cats here, these little woolly monsters, sometimes they have different priorities than me getting a proper night's sleep. So yeah. Link in the description, archived of course. Legacymedia being uttered by the richest or second richest man in the world in reference to the corporate media. I would point out to him, though, again, it doesn't invariably overlap with corporate media in general. Missing link media would be separate, but they're still corporate. So we do have to define our terms. We have to have a puristic language usage in order to shift the debate. That's about all. Peace out.